The key component of this quilt is, of course, this shape, the isosceles triangle in a square. I also use a shape for star making as an aside. So let's talk about the traditional way to cut it. I'm going to start with the tree, okay? For the wall hanging, you're going to want to cut yourself a square that is 4 7/8 by 4 7/8. Once you have the square cut, you're going to want to find the center of it. And how I do it is like this. I simply fold it, being very careful that it's exactly in half, pinch it with my finger on the mat, right? If you can't see it, you can also just make a little dot up here. And then you're going to take your rotary ruler and mat and go exactly from that dot all the way to the corner and cut. Let me show you a trick that I learned in drafting in college. Sometimes when we're trying to find different corners, etc., it's crazy. So I put my blade exactly on that dot and then pivot around and find the corner and give it a whack. So let me show you this trick again in case you didn't get it. You put your blade exactly on the one side that you want to cut, the point, and then pivot the ruler around exactly to the other corner and give it a whack. That way you're not fishing two sides. It works so great, and I use it all the time when I'm cutting half square triangles, quarter square triangles, etc. All right, here is your tree shape. Now the bummer is this is waste. So I don't know if you're a scrap saver type gal or not, and guy, excuse me, but after taking Susan Carlson's class, I am. Okay, let's talk about the background right now. You'll notice it has a left and a right. Mirror images, kind of like in dressmaking when you would cut the back of the dress to put in the zipper and you have a left side and a right side. So it's very important that when you go to cut this fabric, your initial rectangle, you cut it with like sides together. I've cut this rectangle at 2 3/4 by 5 1/4. And again, I'm going to use that little trick, make sure it's all scooted together, that I learned in drafting, putting my blade down and coming up. And look at this. Because they were like sides together, you've got that background and you have that background. Once you have all your pieces cut for the tree, it's time to line up the shapes. I call this situation when weirdo shapes don't line up. Let's take a look. You can see here that this particular shape has a much longer tail to it than will fit on here. So, where do you put what? What you do is I want you to think of this as a Christmas tree, all right? And you always line up at the tippy top where the star goes on the Christmas tree, okay? So you can see right there that it's in perfect position. Using the perfect 1/4 inch that I know you've mastered, I would suggest that you actually sew from the base of the tree up to the top where the star goes. So that means you turn it over and run it through your machine like that. So you can see here, now I've sewn it. And I got to tell you the truth, I'm pretty proud of this 1/4 inch. Doesn't always work so well when you're doing this odd angle. So really do sew it from the base up. Now we have to press it. Let's talk a little bit about this tree shape. This was the original base of the square, right? And now you've got this angle and this angle. Well, they're biases, and you never ever want the iron to touch the bias edge because it will stretch it. So let's go to the ironing surface and I'll show you how I do this. When I am pressing seams from one side to another and there are less than 6 seams, I typically like to press on the top because if I turn it upside down, you have a really good chance to get yourself a nice, sweet tuck in it, and you don't want that. So I take my iron, and I'm on the top, and I come up and off, and my iron never, ever, ever, as Taylor Swift says, ever, ever touches this edge. And then you'll be okay whether using a steam or a dry iron. Also make sure that your ironing surface is firm. If you have something real squishy, that could potentially shift it too and stretch the bias. Now it's time to put on the other side. You'll see here, because we've pressed it to the background, you have this little itty bitty tag up here. It's fantastic. That's exactly where this side is going to fit in. And again, I will go to my machine and from the base, sew it up. Because I'm sewing two biases that are long, I want to make sure I'm not pulling it through. I'm not causing it any distress. I'm letting the machine do the work that she's meant to do. Love the cut feature. In a perfect world, when I go and press this, and by the way, now I can press it all I want because it's straight of grain all the way around the edge. In a perfect world, this is going to measure 4.5. But honestly, many times on this shape, it can veer in or veer in that way. It can just get weird on you. So let me show you what I do next. Okay, you can see here how it veers in a little bit. It just happens. I just don't lose sleep over it, okay? So this is how I correct it. First of all, I want to make sure that this here is 1/4 inch from the top. And you can see if I put the little 1/4 inch of my ruler on the tippy tree top, this actually made it to exactly 4.5. Yay! I take this and I trim off. And then for the weirdness that's happening on the sides, I take my ruler, half of 4.5 is 2.25. I put this on 2.25 right in the middle, and then I make sure that this is parallel or runs right next to the top of the block, and I go ahead and cut this off. And let me tell you something, people, it's rare that I trim, okay? My feeling is once it's off, it can't be sewn back on. So you can see here, 1/4 inch, go up here, and just a little bit up here, and then where it falls short down here, don't worry about it. We'll make up for it when we do the trunk.